Good morning, folks. This is Anne Marie, and this is the extended SPY report. Here we are looking at the SPY, and once again, higher high. We got up into this 169.64 region, 169.74. Let's see where we had the targets. We had 169.59 and 169.93, so it did stop shy of that. Listen, when you are trading and you've got these targets set and it's coming into a space and starting to flatten out like this, sometimes it carries through until the next day. Certainly you can see this right here. You can see what the technical analysis looks like. If you sit in the neutral zone, then as long as the slow SMI does not dip significantly harshly, then you need to mark where you think relative support is and if it's confirming a breakdown of that support. But when you come into a level like this and it begins to show this sort of pattern, it is extremely important that you say, you know what, I probably need to take some profit, right? The target from 169.27 or 29, excuse me, the break into the 169.74-ish area is a very, very nice trade, but it's something that you have to pay attention to and not let all of it fade on you. Now, you should have a little bit long going into tomorrow, just as a general statement. So we shall see. Actually, it would be today, excuse me. Right now we are up again very marginally, just a few little gaps. We are making little gaps in this space. And so here we are in a very tight channel. The trade again is above the 169.74 area, or at the bounce off of, let's see the recapture of that, 169.50, right? And then the 169.50 will take us into 170.01, and then, well, maybe 170. You know what, actually the 169.93 area still looks pretty solid. And then 170.24 and 170.59. That looks like the region's still pressing upwards a little bit. Now what do we do about a short? I think a short opens up just underneath this level right here, 169.21, right? Or at the rejection of 169.48. And that will give us this midline event here at 169.03. And then 168.82. And then 168.63. I think we ought to be okay right about there. Overall, still holding steady, still expanding. Distance between the 50 and the 200 still getting wider. Very linear tracking here. Very, very linear tracking. And again, 171.11, 171.09 seems to be that frontline target. This looks just about the same as SPY in general, right? Holding steady, strong, still a very aggressive line. The trade here is up above the 104.75 for the long, or I think at the bounce up above 104.56. That looks pretty good. We'll have shorting action beneath 104.35, or at the loss of maybe 104.50. But if we move to the upside, we're looking at 104.92, 105.08. Let's see. I would say it's probably this midline here, 105.38. And then, 105.65. On the downside, our first target would be the pivot 104.13. And then below that, here's the congestion event. It's 104.02, so those are kind of close together. You'll have to watch that carefully. Maybe put it on a 5-minute chart. If you see it running down into the region, the pivot is 103.95. So between those two, you want to watch it. And then we've got the 50 at 103.76. And then the weekly pivot at 103.67. Should we lose that event, what we are going to do is more than likely fill the gap. And that would be 103.48. Charts still look strong, still look upside. We are cautiously bullish. Now, let's take a look at these guys. The one chart that looks like it's showing weakness are the Qs. It's dropped. Wow, big sneeze. I am so sorry about that. The one chart that looks weak is this one right here. Look at it. It's underneath the 50. The 50 is starting to tighten up. The distance between the 50 and the 200 starting to flatten out. Sitting in between some moving averages, came down into S1 a couple of days ago. Still failure to breach the pivot on the day. So this weak action, we really need to think about what in the world does that mean for the NASDAQ. I think that that's a very, very interesting question to ponder. But let's take a look at what we can do here for the trade. I think above 74.98, or, excuse me about the sniffles, at 74.86. I know that's underneath the pivot, so it might be a little dangerous there. What we can do is, you know what, I'm going to reevaluate that. No. Above 74.98, we're going to go into the 50. 75.19. Wow. Sorry about that, folks. And then 75.38. We have to stair step here because it's very, very noisy. 75.58. And then 75.66. The blog may have a couple more than that. Now, yesterday I had the target. Here it was. We opened here at 74.69, and I did say above 74.66. So there was a trigger at the open. It said or at the bounce off of 74.39. We take a long into 74.77 and 74.99. Our high on the day was 74.89. No, 74.90, coming in very close into the morning and then holding. So again, when you see this sort of thing coming into the pivot, remember, I can't see the pivot until the morning starts, and I do this at 6 o'clock in the morning. So, you've got to go back to the blog and take a look at the pivot points and see if they need adjusting. If I have 74.99 as a relative pivot and the daily pivot comes in at 74.92, you know that level is going to be more important than the 74.99 and could stand in the way. All right? So, that being said, that's what we've got for upside momentum. For the downside momentum, the move, I think, is below 74.60 or at the loss of 74.80. And then we can just take it into this noise. 74.42, 74.29, that is the support level. That 74.27. I think that's a better number than 74.29. And then we're in a gap. So the 50% marker in the gap, 73.87. And then finally, the fill of the gap, 73.51. Charts still look extremely bullish. Use caution today if you take bearish formations. They should be extremely counter trend. And good luck trading.